Now, all frontline police officers in South Wales could be armed with tasers in order to face the increasing threat of gangs carrying knives. The force has 2,800 officers. At the moment, just 10% of them carry a stun gun. Well, South Wales Police Chief Constable Matt Dukes has told the BBC that while there is a lot to consider, he does think there should be more officers on patrol with a taser.
Obviously, we need to look at what's sustainable, what we can phase in over time. Training people and the cost of the equipment as well are all factors. But my instinct tells me the place for us to focus is the front line, and that 10% of those officers at this point in time having that taser availability is not enough.
That's Chief Constable Matt Dukes. Richard Taylor joins us. He's been campaigning against the increasing use of tasers by police for the last 10 years. Morning, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning.
What do you think of the Chief Constable's reasoning there? His officers are under pressure.
Well, absolutely, and the Chief Constable's actually got very few options available to him. I think we've certainly got a big problem in our society if we've got more people carrying and using knives. I would like to see us sort of tackling this problem at another level. Like, really, we've failed as a society by the time we've got to that point. So I think we should be doing things like opening up the courts, making sure that if ever there's an assault against a police officer, there's a significant separate sentence. And really, I think the courts operate relatively secretly. I'd like to see our courts sort of getting on Facebook, getting on Instagram, so people know there are real consequences of carrying knives and assaulting police officers.
Yeah, in the meantime, if you don't make those reforms, he would point out to you that 500 assaults on officers in the course of a year, average about 9 or 10 a week. That's quite high, isn't it?
It is, and but one thing I want to see a safe society, and I want to see our society safe for police officers and for everyone else. And my concern is that if we increase the number of tasers that South Wales Police have, we'll move from seeing taser being discharged in South Wales less than once a week to perhaps more than once a day. And my concern is that then we'll have disproportionate force being used in more situations. I hope what everyone wants is proportionate policing and the right amount of force in the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, what the Chief Constable is saying really is that an awful lot of attacks in the normal course of police work are from people who are fueled by drink or drugs, or people who have issues with mental health. But there is also a proportion of people who are just dead nasty, in the Chief Constable's own words.
Well, certainly when we've got a lot of crime of whatever type is related to addiction, drink and drugs, and we need to tackle that. And certainly with people with those kind of problems, if you use a taser on them, quite what happens next after you've pulled the trigger is really an unknown. And I think something I want to stress is that tasers are really dangerous weapons. So you've described them as a stun gun this morning. Like that's like Star Trek language. They are really well, they're not like that. Like when a taser hits you, you lose all control of your muscles. Yeah. So if you're standing up, you can't stop your head from falling on the floor. So your head drops to potentially a concrete floor or a curb from 2 metres or so high.
Well, these are all issues which Matt Dukes would say are going to be covered by training, because if you know what you're doing, all right, there's always an element of risk, but if you know what you're doing, the taser is a useful aid to keeping people safe.
Well, this is my concern with giving them to all frontline officers. I'd like them to be restricted largely to the firearms teams, who are incredibly highly trained and have an awful lot of practical experience of deciding when it's appropriate to use extreme levels of force. So I think as a society we'd be much safer if we kept taser to the specialist, highly trained officers, rather than officers who might not come into the kind of situation where they have to deploy a taser for many years.
Richard, thank you very much. Richard Taylor, campaigning on the use of tasers.
Now, millions of